But then you go into current, and I thought the instrumental was pretty hysterical. I really didn't want to, but I just enjoy the bed squeaking. Like, I was like, is this man really making a song with this sound as the driver? And he did, and I just found myself like, I couldn't help it. You know? I was like, damn, he got me again. You know, first too sexy, now this.
Work for me. It's also very whiny. Like he's draking like all over the album, and it doesn't work because he's doing the thing like where he's just like, I know, you know, that we all know. And it's just like, and when he does that like over and over again, like over the course of the album, like
Let me put you on game.
man, let's give the people what they want. Let's not bury the lead. Let's talk about Drake. Drake, you're all familiar with Drake. There's no need to give an introduction. He's one of the biggest artists in the world. He dropped a surprise album last week that has set the internet on fire for better or for worse. There are a million different hot takes going one way or the other about this album. It's very divisive and controversial, experimental, a lot of different things. So we are here to talk about honestly, Nevermind. Drake's new project. It's a new project in a long line of his discography. He's experimented with a lot of different sounds, but this is a different level of experimentation. So before we get into the nitty gritty of the review, what are your overall thoughts about his new offering?
Hey, brother. I think that there's two camps and reactions that I'm seeing from this project. Camp one is you love it and you appreciate it for Drake stepping out into a new musical space and experimenting for a whole project. And the other camp is you want certified lover boy Drake and more songs like Jimmy Cooks and not this EDM house music nonsense. That's kind of like the polars that I'm seeing a lot.
Mm,
For me personally, I just want to hear good music and authenticity and real emotions. And I'll say that I kind of got one of those things.
okay. Saving it a little bit. I dig it. I dig it. I
Yeah.
guess I'll say I think that over the past couple of years, I've been amongst the chorus saying that I think Drake has played it too safe for the majority of his career. He does experiment with different genres, but it's not necessarily leading the charge on those genres a lot of times. It's kind of knowing what the wave is or what the wave is going to be and hopping on it at the right time. And because he is who he is, it's wildly successful. But he hasn't really delved deep enough for me on a personal level or taken enough of a risk sonically for me to really be intrigued by his music because I think his last 4 or 5 albums really just haven't done it for me as a listener. And I think with this album, I can applaud his experimentation. It's a risk for sure because this album is very divisive. And I think he knew that going into making it, that a lot of people weren't going to be feeling it. But I applaud his ability to take a risk with a sound that he hasn't really dived that deep into thus far. So I'll applaud him for that on one end. And I'll also say that this album is pretty mid, man. It's pretty, I don't think there's really anything significant or special about it. A lot of people have, really clowned the production and talked about, it's oons oons music, it's glow stick music, it's all of this and that. And I think the production is fine. For me, for the most part, there's some misses definitely, but I think my issue with the album is Drake himself.
Mm.
Um, I think that his singing on this album is pretty lackluster. Um, it's it's not necessarily him as far as like him being a bad singer. It's just it doesn't feel like he's really trying hard enough. Like I think we've heard him be better on different songs, like like a passion fruit or other songs where he's been just better vocally. I think he's just not in his bag vocally at all, and I think it shows. I
Mm.
think he's just not interesting enough of a vocalist or a lyricist to carry the production on this project. So that's a long-winded way of me, because I gotta justify it because people gonna come for me if I if I don't give a full explanation for why I don't like it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I don't think Drake is enough on this album. I think if you replaced him with Beyonce, ironically enough, who dropped a similar track, or if you replace him with a guy like Sampha, I think that it would be a more interesting and engaging listen. But that's just me. But let's get into the the nitty gritty of the album. How about you start us off with your impressions of the first couple tracks?
All right, so we got intro. Spacey atmosphere with the faint saxophone playing in the background was nice. The transition was a little jarring into the first track, I noticed. Falling back though, Drake, I said that he's pulling a Drake on himself with this song. He gave his all in a relationship and it's not being reciprocated, which causes him to fall back, so to speak. He's singing just sounds kind of whiny, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to take it seriously or not, because if I am, it's bad by most standards. And if it's not serious, it's more passable, but it feels more like comedy than it does music. And
The
so
man
I
sounds like me, bro. He sounds like me giving my best in the shower.
honestly,
Let's just be honest.
yeah, I was really confused. I'm like, I don't know how to, and I think that's that jarring experience of like, whoa, like what am I supposed to do with this as a fan? It's like and this is track 2, so you're like, I got 13, 12 more tracks of this, like what am I in for? So then you go into Text Go Green. I actually like the mellow synth horns and the tempo of the percussion, his singing and his signature style with him going on about how much he's moved on and how much he is in a better place since this toxic relationship, and because I blocked your number, now your texts go green on my phone, or maybe you have an Android, who knows. But he's definitely in the iPhone culture camp right now and is singing from that perspective, so he's going to get a lot of support in that regard. So it was a solid song, nothing crazy, bad, or good in particularly. But then you go into current, and then this is where I started to think, okay, I like what he's doing. I think I understand the direction he's trying to go in. I thought the instrumental was pretty hysterical. I really didn't want to, but I just enjoy the bed squeaking. Like, I was like, is this man really making a song with this sound as the driver? And he did, and I just found myself like, I couldn't help it. You know? I was like, damn, he got me again. First too sexy, now this. It was the sounds were off kilter, and it was odd, but it also had a familiarity to it that made you kind of made me latch onto it. And it's not boring, it's not great, but it's overall hard to conceptualize. And because I found myself bumping my head to it, I ended up saying this is probably on the plus side of the album, in terms of songs that I actually enjoyed. How about you? What did you think about this opening stretch?
It's bad. I can't even. Yeah, I can't. I can't sugarcoat it. I mean, intro. It's literally just an intro. It's very brief. It's very short. But I will say it does not prepare you for what you're in for, because there's no ounce on that intro. It's just it's pretty serene, and it doesn't really prepare you for falling back. But yeah, the falsetto on falling back is really bad, man. I like the production, like I said, but yeah, and then his lyrics aren't enough to save it for me. I just think it's objectively just not a good song to me. Text Go Green, I think, was a little bit better, but it's the production, I think, were fine. The production and the chorus were fine, but Drake's singing on the verses, it just doesn't really work for me. It's also it's very whiny. Like he's draking like all over the album, and it doesn't work because he's doing the thing like where he's just like, I know, that we all know. And it's just like, and when he does that like over and over again, like over the course of the album, like when you listen to this album again, listen to how many times on one song or another he says the words "I know," and but he does it continuously, like in various different ways over the course of the album. So it's just like it gets so tiresome. But it starts like with these first couple songs, and then currents, like I know you was gonna like that shit, but I can't get jiggy with it, man. It's just not good. It sounds like a parody track. I don't know.
It does.
I get it. I had to force my foot from not tapping during certain points, but like I can't let myself acknowledge that this is even like close to a good song.
Yeah.
A keeper, I think this is one of the most boring songs on the album. The chorus and the verses are really vapid and just uninspiring, and the beat again just doesn't do enough to save it. Calling my name, the chorus is hilarious and really catchy. I found myself like waking up in the middle of the night and hearing it in my sleep. but, but it's like, it's just, the song is not
Oh,
good. That's what's so frustrating about it. It's like, I don't like this. Why is my brain like calling back to this song? I don't, it also sounded like Frank Ocean to me for some reason. Like, I know it's not
oh,
good, but it's just, yeah, it's a bad song.
yeah.
But the album does pick up a little bit with Sticky for me. I
Hmm.
think this is better. And I think it's also because it sounds closer to his normal cadence and his normal like tone because he's rapping essentially, rap singing on it, which is more what we're used to. And I think it's just a better fit. Um, but yeah, I think it works better with this type of production as far as the, the whiny I know you know thing. Um, Massive, I really like. I think Massive is probably my favorite song on the album. That's the one song I think from this album that I'll probably go back to a lot. Um, I think the production here is much more layered and compelling. I love the pounding keys and I think Drake's vocals work really well. Honestly, I wish there were more tracks on the album like this because this is a jam. It's like a really good like Soul Train line level dance track. I think Drake works really well on it, but there's just not enough of that on this album for it being a house album. There's not enough songs that really make you want to get up and like actually dance. But Massive, I think, is one of those that is actually like a really good dance track. But that's my opinion on this stretch. But
Yeah.
mixed, to say the least.
Yeah, at best. Yeah, Keeper. I like the melodic nature of the song, but the refrain just got so repetitive that I just grew sick of it by the halfway point of the song, and by the end of the song, I just wanted to just press skip. And the verses were just clunky and just uninspired, kind of like you said. It just feels really spotty in its execution. And I like the concept of the song, and I like the melody, but it just grew so stale by the end of it. And I think that had he refined it a little bit more, there could have been something special there. And that's kind of something that I've noticed a lot in this project. Like some of these songs, the way they're constructed, don't it doesn't give you um, what there's something there, but he just rushed it or didn't take care of it and really like hone it in and spend a lot of time just trying to kind of I don't know grind it into something positive. Calling my
Yeah.
name, I wish that he would have left the first part of the song off completely because I think that part two it could have been a real banger. It leans into that silliness that Current leans into, as well as songs like Too Sexy leaned into last year. That zany kind of like you know not shock and all, but like it's just zany. It's off kilter. You're not expecting him to say something like that. Kind of clutching your pearls kind of thing, but to me, it was just another missed opportunity because it started so slow, which I've noticed on a lot of these songs. And then, yeah, I agree. Sticky, I really enjoyed the uptick in tempo and energy. He leaned into his flow and his charisma a lot more. It has some bounce to it. I like that the instrumental has different expressions on the last verse and it increases the intensity overall. I'm like, okay, yes, like you said, layered production and just different elements that created something dynamic. Um, but again, I feel like Massive, as much as I kind of liked it, I thought it suffered the same slow start as Calling My Name, and that's what really made me not like it as much. The
Mm.
EDM was palpable, it was more interesting. I feel like it fits him, and it doesn't require like EDM doesn't really require the artist to have amazing vocals. It just because you're really led by the synths and the sound effects that take center stage, and I felt like this song kind of permitted that a bit more and but Drake didn't lean into that production as much as I feel like he should have. Then going
Mm.
into Flight Books, this intro was slow and spacey, but then it worked against all the energy that he built up between Sticky and Massive. It was just not really captivating lyrically. The soundscapes were solid, but his little refrain on the bridge was really underwhelming, and I just didn't. I really didn't like the song. Overdrive, this was another song where I feel like had he put more time into it, it could have been something special. I like the deep synths and the bass chords. He leaned in on the negative emotion and the his voice was a little bit more dark and brooding. But as he evoked emotions of bitterness and jealousy, I thought he created a nice vibe on the track, marrying the instrumental and the lyrics. And it's good by comparison to Flight's book. I don't know if it's actually good or if it's just good by comparison because the
Mhm.
previous couple songs were a letdown for me. Downhill, I like the open atmosphere, the spacey sustained chords, sounds. I was thankful that he employed Bo Knox and Tresser on the hook and outro respectively. But I think that they could have cut his third verse out and done something a bit more dynamic. You know, it could have used a bridge. It could have used some kind of brightening because it just got so bogged down, and I was just really uninspired by the song overall because I thought it was gonna pick up, but it was just downhill, and it was just maintain that downhill approach with no uptick. Like
Pun
it.
intended.
Yeah, pun intended, pun not intended. I'm just done intended. Like it goes out with a whimper. And that's kind of how I feel about this stretch. How do you think about this stretch, and close it out for us?
I actually kind of like Flight's book, but again, it could also be in the context of the album, because the rest of this is pretty uninspiring. So I thought I was like, oh, this is nice. This did
Hmm.
something. So I thought Drake's melody on the chorus was nice. I enjoyed the production. The vocal sample on the opening I thought was a nice touch. Overdrive was okay. I think it was just a nice change of pace. There's not really that much electric guitar on the album, so that was a nice change of instrumentation. Um, but yeah, it doesn't quite come together as a song. The chorus is pretty lacking, like a lot of choruses on this album, unfortunately. And I was also thinking during this listen, this final listen of the album, I was thinking this album could have used some features, like some female vocalists. I think would have been a really nice touch on here, like a Kalela or maybe like a Solange, or like just someone to break up the monotony of Drake. Because I think there's just, even though it is a Drake album, vocally there's just too much Drake on here.
Yeah.
I think it could have definitely used some breaking up. I think Isaiah Rashad's album is a good album example of that, where he kind of placed his features perfectly in all these different places, whether it's a Duke Deuce or Smino, like they're all placed in these positions to succeed. So I think there's a lot of really cool, unique, like alternative R&B or some house music, EDM leaning female vocalists that could have been really useful here, but it's just Drake,
Yeah.
and some interspersed vocal samples here and there.
Yeah. Even a Jesse
Downhill,
Ware.
yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
Anyone. Anyone.
Honestly. Yeah.
Somebody,
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah, downhill is meh. The chorus was cool. The bongos were a nice touch. I feel like I'm grading on a curve here at this point. Um, the ties that binds is yeah, it's pretty bland. The guitar work is pretty run of the mill. I think there could have been a stronger guitar. I'm thinking like the laydown on that Shelly Dram track from a couple of years ago. Like that guy killed it on that interlude. So that would have been a cool. I think it could have just used some more intricate and some more impressive guitar work. It seemed pretty like spaced out and just like it sounded like Lil Wayne playing the guitar back back in the day on Rebirth or something. Um, yeah, it was just pretty run of the mill. Liability is one of the more puzzling songs on the album. Second most puzzling song on the album. Um, it features Drake just using this really plotting and whining vocal refrain and melody that drags the track down. The pitch down vocals don't really work. It's just not a good, subjectively not a good song. And then you got Jimmy Cooks, which by itself is fine. I think it's a fine song. It's just like, what the hell is it doing here
Yeah.
on this album? Like, why did you put it on the end, and why is it here? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're gonna lean all the way into this sound, just lean all the way into it and go with the sound that you're going for. Like, why throw a 21 Savage feature on a trap instrumental at the end of an album where you're experimenting with a different genre? You know,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
it doesn't make any sense. It's a fine song, but it's one of those songs where it's good, but it's bad in the context of where it's put. So yeah, the album overall, just to close it out for me, was just pretty underwhelming. I didn't understand what the point of it was. It seems like an album that was probably made in like a 36-hour period as far as what Drake's contribution to it was, but that's just
Yeah.
me. How do you feel about the closing stretch?
It just went out with a whimper and a confusing whimper at that because um, Ties That Bind wasn't that interesting until the guitar chords kick in, like after like the first minute mark of the song. And I really could have used that a lot earlier in the song. And then I appreciated him letting that element take the song over. So much so that when he started singing, I just wanted to skip his singing and get back to the guitar.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many spots where I was like, okay, I'm a little tired and exhausted of Drake's voice at this point. And then liability, those vocal distortions were just dreadful, and it was such a slog. This track was a liability to this whole project. Honestly,
You coming with the puns today.
yeah, man, I got to keep coming. And then Jimmy Cooks, I mean, yeah, like I kind of I dug this, but it was probably what a lot of people wanted to see in a surprise mixtape or album from Drake. And this album could have really used this song if this is and leaned into this sound more if that's what he wanted to do. But the fact that it's here, it's like if you're gonna commit to a sound artistically, commit to it. Don't be like half in, half out with. And so with this, you think of it like his mixtape More Life from like I don't, was it what 6 7 years ago now, and how that kind of came about. And you had like one of the singles from it was I can't remember the name, with 21 Savage. It's a similar vibe, but then when you listen to the whole mixtape, it's like that song with 21 Savage didn't really fit the aesthetic of it. It was more of a soundscapes that Drake was creating. Same thing here. I like this song, but it just doesn't fit. 21 Savage had a great verse. I like Drake's energy and flow and charisma on this track. It was nice, but just no artistic consistency from that standpoint. And then if you're gonna think of liability as the true end to the album, it was a terrible end. And the project probably should have stopped at Ties That Bind or Overdrive, or even Massive. Like otherwise, a lot of this, the back end of this project was just kind of a letdown overall. And I'm surprised that quality wise he gave this to us, because it just feels like he didn't care all that much. I mean, maybe some of this was developed during this, because I know Certified Lover Boy was delayed, so maybe he was developing some of this while he was kind of rolling that promotion out for CLB. But I think that it feels rushed. It feels like he didn't take a lot of time with it, and maybe he's just trying to churn out music now with his new distribution or his new record deal that he has. I think he kind of signed a lot of his masters away or made some kind of deal, so maybe he's just trying to cash in on that, and we'll see a lot more projects being dropped by Drizzy. And maybe he's pulling a wool over the music industry as a whole, because he's just putting stuff out there and he knows somebody's going to defend him. So
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst thing we've heard. I mean, if you like it, I understand. I just don't. I don't really care for it all that much. There's a track or two I might go back to, but that's honestly it. I don't dislike it more than other Drake albums. That happens to me all the time, where I listen to a Drake album and I take 2 or 3 songs away from it, and then I keep it moving, because that's just how I feel about him as an artist. I respect also for sure, but he's never really been my cup of tea. We've been rocking since like 2010, so you already know that. But speaking of taking away a couple tracks and moving on, what are your 3 favorite tracks?
I'll go. It was actually kind of hard. I'll go Current, I'll go Sticky, and Jimmy Cooks, because they're just the best tracks. Even if Jimmy Cooks doesn't fit, it's still a lot better overall than a lot of tracks on this. So
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I'll go Sticky, Massive. Uh, uh, Jimmy Cooks, I guess.
there you go. There you go.
I was trying to find one of the Unts songs to pick, but that's the best I can do. If you had to recommend this to our listeners, if they haven't heard it, because I'm sure there's some people that are avoiding it after what they've heard about it, but if you had to recommend it on a scale of hard pass to must listen, what would you say?
I would say that with this project, you could maybe give it a shot, but honestly, never mind. You ain't missing much.
Yeah, I hear you. I was stuck between those two as well. I think
I don't think you caught the pun.
I'm sure I will when I watch this back. I'm just so used to the puns, they just go right over my head.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I don't think you're really missing too much by listening to this album. This album kind of made me. I'm not really that into house music. It kind of made me want to figure out like who the leaders and the best, critically acclaimed house artists are, and maybe dive into that so I can get a taste of what the genre actually is, rather than like the gentrified version of it. So yeah, but that's where I sit with it. Any final thoughts on the project, or can we close this thing out?
I think we could close this out. Drake, go back to the drawing board and please give your fans some kind of quality. I know you're a businessman. I know you're a mogul. I know you got executive skills, whatever the case is, but actually make something that's compelling and worthwhile from track one to track whatever the end is. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I don't want it to seem like I'm hating. I think Drake seems like a cool guy. He seems pretty nice, but musically, I just never really got with the program for the most part. I
Yeah.
think he could probably build like two albums out of the Drake songs that I've liked so far in
Mm,
his discography. I think they would be pretty good, but I just haven't really enjoyed his albums as a whole. I think this is probably the worst one that I've listened to,
in
but
a while. Yeah.
yeah, they're all pretty middling for me overall. But this one in particular, it just seemed pretty uninspired. But I mean, if he's gonna dive into this again, maybe it's a learning experience. Because a lot of times when artists experiment, like the first try at it isn't really all that great because they haven't really figured out how to navigate the genre. So, maybe there's more of this Drake and maybe it'll be better. But who knows?
Yeah.
But that's how I feel about it. How do you guys feel about it? What do you think about Honestly Nevermind? Do you think it's a good departure from his normal sound, or are you where we are and a lot of the internet is, where you think it's mid, or are you on the complete other end where you think that it's complete trash and and it shouldn't exist? But let us know in the comments, and let us know in the emails if you feel one way or the other, or you're in the middle. But that'll do
Thanks
it.
for checking out this segment of the Put You On Game podcast, where we discuss everything from hoops to hi-hats.
Give us your thoughts on the video in the comment section, and you can also find the full podcast in the link in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.